Thank you, Mr. President. And before I start, I'd like to say thank you very much I had a surprise retirement party last Friday night, and you were one of the guest speakers there, and I want to publicly thank you and the governor for the nice words that you said at that party with all my family and friends involved, so thank you very much. I want everyone to know that the last 10 years of my life have really been exciting, fulfilling, and rewarding to me personally. My time in the Senate chamber has been amazing. First, I'd like to thank the citizens of the 19th Senate District for giving me the tremendous honor of serving them in the state of Michigan. It truly has been humbling and something I will never forget. When I first got here, I never imagined that one person working with so many other elected officials could accomplish so many good things for our state. We, all of us, were so fortunate that we were all elected to this office at the same time. There are so many good and talented people that I was able to work with here, and what a blessing it was for me. Now, I must say something about the leaders I worked under, and I had 3. As you know, I had a couple extra years other than the normal 8-year 2 terms. First was Mike Bishop. Mike Bishop showed me how to honor and respect this institution and how we are so fortunate to be elected to it. He loved this institution, taught me to never forget we are only here for a short period of time, so respect it and enjoy it. Then came Randy Richardville. It was amazing how he led our diverse group without losing it himself at times. He truly tried to work with everyone and usually did. Only a special person can do that. Then there's our current leader, Arlen Meekoff. The reason I love this guy is that philosophically, we were not always on the same page. But as a true leader does, he set high expectations and stood by his promises. He said that committee chairs would have the power and the authority to run their individual committees. A lot of leaders say that, but few follow through and mean it. It was a pleasure running the committee under his leadership. He never, ever let me down. Arlen, thank you for honoring your word. Even when the pressure got tough, you always allowed me to run with the issue. So thanks for believing in us. Now, there are a few senators who served with us in our first term, or at least my first term, who taught me so much. Such good people are so very smart. I'm talking about my friends for life. Senator Bruce Patterson. I learned so much from him on how to run a committee and to be a successful chairman. When I was chairman of Energy and Tech in the House, he always worked with me, and I was able to run with my ideas, and we were able to get the job done. He never would let me fail. He offered such good and subtle advice that he could lead you in the right direction without saying it outright. I loved being around him. It was so much fun to watch how he operated his committee over here in the Senate and worked with the people. Sometimes very, very entertaining. So thank you, Bruce. You inspired me all these years, and I'm not sure that you realize that. Then one of my best friends, who deserted me 4 years early, former Senator Bruce Caswell. And I think Bruce is up in the gallery, up in the East Gallery today. So Bruce, you were so full of knowledge and wisdom when I learned so much sitting next to you in caucus. I saw how from time to time how you poured your heart out on an issue that you cared about so much because it affected someone back home in your district. You were such a good advocate for the people that you served. You never gave up, and you always cared. The friendship we shared will last, my friend, forever. But I'm still mad at you for leaving one term early, and I've really missed you these last 4 years in caucus. Next, I want to mention my Appropriations Chairman, Dave Hildebrand. You too let me run my subcommittee with little or no intrusion, and yet you guided me well. You too are a man of your word. I am so glad that some of your goals matched up with some of mine very well. You really do care about veterans of this state and our men and women who serve us in our military. With you, they'll have homes to reside in, and the quality of care has risen significantly under your leadership. Also, your concern for the men and women of the Michigan State Police, who there are several up in the East Gallery also here today. Under your leadership, we have given that department what they needed, and the changes that we made allows them to deliver the service our citizens want and deserve. So I truly thank you, Dave. I must mention Senator Pat Colbeck. Thank you for putting in place a measured outcomes budget for the MSP and the DMVA before I became chairman. Most in those departments did not like the change, but in the end, both departments knew what was expected of them and the service that our citizens expect from them, and it became so much better. So thank you, Senator. Now to our support personnel that make us look so good. They are the brains behind the scene, like Bruce Baker from Senate Fiscal, who knows these budgets inside and out. Without you and your expertise, we wouldn't know the history behind the numbers, Bruce. And I'm so glad that you were around so long. You provided immeasurable help to me as a new chairman learning the job, and so I want to say thank you. And then there was the policy person for those committees and the numbers. Her name is Stephanie McGuire. Stephanie, you made sense of some of the crazy ideas that we came up with, and you actually were able to put the ideas into words and help me get across what we were trying to do in that committee. So I'm not sure, oh, there she is behind me. Thank you, Stephanie. Then there's Dan Dundas. Where's Dan? Ah, right here next to her. Dan has a great way of questioning you and what you're doing, and then asking, is that what it does? You were the person I could trust to test my ideas if I had the votes or not, and if they were good ideas to run with. Man, sometimes you made me think too much, though. On the way home, I would think and think and think about what you said, and I worked hard once I got home to make sure I had the votes and it was saying what it was supposed to say. So I want to say thank you very much, and the committee is so much better with your service and how you were able to do it so professionally and make an impact. So thank you very much. And those of you that served on the committee I chaired, I want to thank all of you. I think we showed everybody how we can work across the aisle and do good committee work. I want to start with my quiet vice chair, Senator Hoon Hopgood. So honest, principled, and just a polite guy. Hoon, did I say quiet? A guy who always had no surprises for me. It was so much of a pleasure to work with you and the excellent job we were able to do 2 years ago on that energy bill. So thank you for all your help. Also on that committee, on and off, we had Senators Beda, Conyers, Kniezek, and Young. Well, everyone's talked about it, and Senator Young, it was so much fun having you on that committee. I was so jealous when you would get up and then you would come back with a bag of chips. Then a sandwich, and later on you even got up and went to the bathroom. I was jealous because I wanted to do the same, but being chairman, you just can't do that sometimes. Also on the committee was Senator Shirkey this last term, who in the beginning I thought I was going to have a bumpy ride with. But in the end, we too worked out our differences on the legislation, and we're able to agree on a final product most of the time. You need people like Mike to make good legislation better. So Michael, thank you very much for being on that committee. Then 4 more important committee members that I always knew would listen for themselves, and always do the right thing. My good friends, Senator Tanya Shoemaker, Senator Joe Hune, Senator Horn, and Senator Zorn. Try to say that 5 times real quick. So much fun to work with all of you on that committee, and I want to thank you for taking some tough votes sometimes on some of the legislation we had to do. And I hope in the end, I know in the end, we did good policy, and I don't think any of us suffered for it. And then, my longtime best friend, my wingman, my vice chair, Senator John Prose. I knew I could give John any assignment, and he would come back to the committee with a perfect end piece to put on the bill, or a standalone bill that he would author. And it was perfect for the goals that we had established on the policy and where we were going. John could go out in the hallway, He could go out before groups, back home, in any of our districts, and articulate the proposed policy so very well. Also, I never had to worry about John's support, mostly because we agreed on the major concepts. You were so important to me, John, over the years on energy and tech committees, in both the House and the Senate. I'm sorry you never got to be chair, but you really were. You were in that position with me, whether you knew it or not. So thank you, my friend. I'm proud of the bipartisan work we did here in this chamber working on the energy future. At the beginning of that discussion, I was told, Mike, you did it in 2008, but you'll never be able to do it again in 2016. They didn't know that we had such a good committee, so thank you, all of you, who were involved in making that happen. Now I must say something about the good people who must stand out in the hallway and listen to us and be disappointed most of the time when they don't get their own way in this chamber. It is a tough job out there. But in a term-limited environment, you teach us, new legislators, so much. You have so much knowledge to offer on the institution and what has been tried before. I have too many friends out there that I can't mention all of you, and I'm sorry if I don't give you a shout-out at this time. But I would like to mention a few. And I want to start with Tom Hoisington. You don't know this, but the outline of the 2008 energy legislation was written on a napkin down at Tropos. Yes, Tom and I talked at the very beginning before it was all started and what that bill might entail. Through the years up here in Lansing, I was blessed to work with him before he retired. What a great guy. Then there was Dave Mingabeer. I also remember our first meeting in Battle Creek, where we talked about the energy legislation and got to know each other. Another amazing individual. Then there was Renz Hoaxman, Steve Young. Pretty good golfer some of the time, but always a lot of fun all the time, and so knowledgeable on the issues. Always respectful and always listen to you, and then they would give you some advice. You two are such good friends and always will be. And then there's Rich Studley. Now Rich, well, I was going to say a hard ass, but I put in my notes hard head sometimes. But in the end, he always wanted what was good for his membership in the state of Michigan. Some of the positions he took on in the energy bill did not make his membership happy, but he knew it was the right thing to do. That is the kind of man he is. There are so many others. Jim Ryan, Bill Wirtz, Becky Beckler, Chris Horak, Jim Murray, Matt Groen, Jimmy Weeks, Bob Hentz, Jennifer Greenberg, Shu Slaybaugh, and Jim Padgett. And my former chairman in the House of Representatives on Energy and Tech, Frank Accavetti. What a pleasure it was working with all of you, and I'm going to miss you. And finally, I have to mention some others who worked with me starting back in the House with LSB and the Michigan Public Service Commission. Steve Transit and Greg White, more amazing people. They taught me so much about energy when I first came to the scene. I knew nothing about energy except for if you stuck your finger in the socket, you'd get a shock. Both moved on, but we never lost contact, especially Steve Transit, who helped me in an enormous way in the 2016 energy legislation. The bill never would have made it through without his expertise. It's also important for me to recognize Kevin Studebaker and Tom Bally, the drafters tasked with turning our ideas into law with these very complicated issues. They both have put in long hours over the years to make sure that we got the language right. So I want to say thank you to them. Now we all know that once legislation is passed, somebody has to implement it. In energy, that's the Michigan Public Service Commission. Chairwoman Sally Tallberg and her tremendous staff work so hard and do an amazing job implementing the legislation as they see fit. Thank you, all of you, for everything that you do at that agency and the hard, dedicated workers you have underneath you. All of the Senate policy people, Senate fiscal people, and the Secretary of the Senate, Jeff Cobb, and his staff, thank you, as you all have made it been a pleasure to work with. But I must say a special thank you to the dedicated men who protect us each and every day here in the Capitol. Mike Ferlin and his dedicated and professional staff are so enjoyable to work with. Each one is friendly but yet effective in protecting us, like yesterday here at the Capitol. We know that we are safe whenever you or your staff are around. Even in our home districts, we know you're not far away. So thank you, and thank you to your men and women in the service to us over these last 8 years. Now, I must give a shout out to the vulnerables and the guy who helped us vulnerables get here, John Llewellyn. We vulnerables, Jack Brandenburg, I think it was Tori Rocca, Tom Casperson, and Jeff Hansen. I don't know if I left anybody else out. David Robertson, yes, Dave. We worked hard to get here, and I'm so thankful that we all made it. I have enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you and becoming good friends with each of you. So thank you very much. Now finally, I want to acknowledge my staff who have done such a great job for the 19th Senate District and me. While I have been in the Senate, I have been blessed with people who work in my office that are just over the top. Let's start with the individuals who are no longer working here. First, my Chief of Staff, Director of Legislation, Greg Moore, and Greg's up in the balcony. I would not be as successful as I have been, Greg, without you, Greg. I would not be the person that I am without you. To me, you're like a younger brother. You're unbelievable. When I go home for the night, I'd get most of my work done after 11 p.m. in my computer room. Everything was quiet, everybody was probably in bed, and I'd do my emails and I'd do my messages, and I'd send some of the emails to Greg and his email address and tell him something needs to be looked at and if he could help me out with it. Right away, I'd get a response. And it'd be, Greg, so I got that, boss, I'll take care of it. I'd text back and say, Greg, it's 2 o'clock in the damn morning. Get your butt to bed, I gotta pick you up in 4 hours, we're going to work. But that was Greg. I cannot tell you enough about all the stuff he did for me. I really do love you like a brother. Thank you. Also, Carmen Siciliano. I love saying the name, Siciliano. It's so much fun. Siciliano, Siciliano, Siciliano. When Greg left my staff, Carmen stepped right up and went from Director of Constituent Services in my office to the Chief of Staff, and did so without missing a beat. He jumped right into the energy fray, and even the 5G tough bill that we just got done, and all the committees I chair and all the work that we did. Everyone up here right away learned, Carmen, you were not going to be an easy pushover. He reads everything. He keeps me informed and he gives me a heads up whenever it's warranted. And believe me, he's tuned in. And the rumor mill has helped us a lot, and you've done well. You're such a good man, Carmen, and I appreciate everything you do for me each and every day. Then there are others who worked for me before, and I think they're up in the gallery, like Drew Beardsley, a young guy who kept the office going and a lot of fun. There he is, Drew. Dedicated and always willing to do what was asked. And we always teased him because he was a young guy. We're a bunch of old group in my office, and he was a young one that kept us alive and jumping and smiling and had a lot of fun. So thank you, Drew, for everything you've done. Then there's Steve Sachs, who helped me in my special election for this Senate seat. If you remember, we Republicans got our butts kicked in 2008. We had the special election, and I happened to be the candidate representing statewide whether or not the Republicans could win. And I know every county in this state worked really, really hard, worked in every precinct, including in the UP. I got calls back then where they would adopt a precinct and try to call the people in that district. And so I want to thank everyone here, especially Steve Sachs, who coordinated all that and worked so hard day and night to make sure that we were successful, and I'm glad he was. So thank you to all your districts or anyone that helped me. And finally, we all know the person who runs the office is the Director of Administrative Services for our officers, otherwise known as the gatekeeper and the boss, Patty Pastor. She has been with me since the beginning. She does all the tedious jobs in the office, like letter mailing, phone calls, finances, to keep us afloat, everything. She has also had to deal with all of us men in the office. Her smile and wit was always refreshing, such a wonderful person who has blessed us and gave us so many fond memories, especially birthday and holiday parties. And we even had her give Senate tributes from time to time, which she does not like public speaking. But she ran all of the golf outings we had every year, and everybody up here in Lansing said it was the best golf outing every year, and they looked forward to it, and they were kind of upset when we stopped them a couple of years ago. You did a great job, Patty. I want to thank you and appreciate everything you've done. You made life so much fun and enjoyable. We all appreciate you for the sweet person that you are. Now I'd like to thank my family, my mom and dad who left us within the last 6 years, My brothers and sisters. I come from a family of 8 brothers and sisters. I'm a twin in the middle. I got a twin sister. Their husbands and their children, and my 2 sons, Michael John Nofs and Matthew Scott Nofs, and their families. And my friend Charlie Jones. They all helped me get elected and came to my golf outings. And my 2 sons, who lost out having their dad attend so many of their events while they were growing up in school. Thank you for understanding. And I know that your dad was not always there, but I tried to get it to as many as I could. For that, I am sorry. But I will now be retired, and your dad will be at everything, so get ready. Finally, I got to tell you the one special moment I had up here in the 16 years that I've been up here. It was back in 2009 after I got elected in that special election, and it was Veterans Day. And we, at the time, the Republican group, were doing a package of bills for veterans, and because I was the vulnerable Jack, they made me the lead speaker out in the rotunda for the press conference. A ton of people showed up, a lot of veterans. I was nervous, got up there. Greg Moore did a great job on my speech. I did what I usually did. I started going down the speech, and then I forgot everything and just went off on my own. And the reason why I went off is because I wanted to touch that group. And I told the story about my dad, who was a World War II veteran, who was on a minesweeper in the South Pacific, a kamikaze plane, dove bomb, and sunk the ship. As soon as that plane hit the ship, they were in the water in 5 minutes. My dad was a good swimmer. He even was a coach and taught us all how to swim. But he was 17 years old at the time. And one of his friends next to him started screaming and hollering as the ship was going down that he couldn't swim. My dad had his life preserver on, took it off, and gave it to the other man. My dad then tread water for 4 hours. I know it because in the Port Huron Times, in the paper, there was a story I found one time when I was helping him clean the basement. He never talked about it much, but it talked about James Bernard Nofs, treading water for 4 hours and then finally swimming toward a diesel smokestack on the horizon. It's another ship. He was one of the first ones that survived. And going back to the package of bills, and when I was up there on the podium talking, I looked out in the crowd. My dad was in a wheelchair at the time, and I saw him and made contact with him in his eyes. I could tell how proud he was of his son. I told that story about him and what veterans of World War II and that great generation went through, and how blessed we were for all the sacrifices they made. At the end, I went out to talk to my dad in the crowd, gave me a hug, and he said, "Michael, I am so glad that I was able to live that day so I could watch you today." It's the best moment I've had up here in this building. It's a blessed building. But I'll never forget that. And I'm so thankful for him, my mom and dad, and my family. Finally, I'd like to thank everybody for all the good times and memories they shared with me. You have enriched my life, being you and accepting me for who I am. I'm going to miss all of you. And in our family, we never say goodbye. I think someone else said this in their speech, but in our family, we say so long. So long until we meet again. So I want to say so long. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. And I really do appreciate all of you. Thank you.